It was 1:47 a.m. when my phone rang. I was half asleep, but I answered because it was her. It was always her. For 3 hours, we talked about her terrible day at work, her anxiety about her sister's wedding, and that time she got lost in Tokyo when she was 19. She cried. I comforted her. She called me babe and said, "I don't know what I'd do without you." And then she hung up, and I realized something crushing. I hadn't seen her in 6 weeks. 6 weeks, 42 days. But she texted me good morning every single day. She sent me photos of her coffee. She called me babe, baby, love. She told me things she said she'd never told anyone. We had the emotional intimacy of a marriage, but the physical proximity of pen pals. And whenever I tried to schedule an actual date dinner, a walk, just sitting in the same room, she was always busy, always overwhelmed, always promising next week or once this project ends or when I'm less anxious. If you're someone's emotional support human, their midnight confidant, their babe in the dark hours of the night, but you can't get them to commit to a Tuesday coffee in the daylight, you're stuck in the digital boyfriend trap. And it's the most expensive trap in modern dating because you're paying the full price of a relationship: time, energy, emotional labor, exclusivity, while receiving none of the benefits. This happened to me with Jessica. We met on Bumble. We talked for 2 weeks before meeting. The first date was electric. But after that, something shifted. She started canceling. First, it was a work emergency. Then, she wasn't feeling well. Then, her dog was sick. Valid reasons, all of them. But the calls continued. The FaceTimes lasted 3 hours. She started using pet names. She started saying, "I feel so safe with you," and "You're the only person who gets me." And I soaked it up because it felt like we were building something profound. But we were building a sandcastle over the phone, and every time I tried to step onto the actual beach, the tide came in and washed the plans away. The misread is thinking that emotional intimacy equals romantic progress. It doesn't. In 2026, with the fragmentation of dating apps and the normalization of parasocial relationships, emotional intimacy has become dangerously disconnected from physical presence. You can know someone's trauma history, their childhood fears, and their coffee order without ever sharing oxygen with them. And for the person in the trap, it feels like love. For the person setting the trap, it feels like having a boyfriend without the obligation of being a girlfriend. Let me break down the psychology here. What Jessica was doing, and what thousands of people do now, is called emotional outsourcing. She was using me as a proxy partner for all the heavy emotional lifting, the validation, the comfort, the sense of being chosen and desired. But she was outsourcing the physical components: presence, touch, shared experiences, public visibility to the void. I was her boyfriend on the phone and a stranger in her calendar. This works for her because it solves a specific modern anxiety, the fear of missing out on better options while still having a safety net. If she commits to Tuesday dinner with me, she's physically unavailable for a spontaneous date with someone else she might like more. If she keeps me in the digital realm, she can maintain the emotional supply while keeping her physical schedule open for upgrades. It's not malicious, it's strategic, and it's devastatingly effective at keeping you on the hook indefinitely. Here are the 3 signs you're a digital boyfriend, not a real one, so you can diagnose this before you've wasted 6 months whispering into a phone at midnight. Sign 1. The calendar mirage. Does she have endless availability for 3-hour phone calls and text conversations that span the entire day, but mysteriously becomes the busiest person alive when you suggest meeting in person? Everyone has the same 24 hours. If she can find 3 hours to cry to you about her ex on FaceTime, she can find 90 minutes for tacos. The too busy excuse is a priority statement, not a time statement. Digital intimacy is convenient. It happens on her terms, in her space, with an exit button ready. Physical presence requires compromise, logistics, and the risk that the chemistry won't translate from screen to skin. If she's avoiding that translation, she's avoiding the relationship. Sign 2. The intimacy asymmetry. Does she share deep, vulnerable, "I've never told anyone this" secrets with you while maintaining a fortress around her physical life? She tells you about her medical history, her fears, her finances, but you don't know her address, and she's never introduced you to a single friend. This creates a false sense of closeness. You feel like you're her closest confidant because you hold her secrets. But secrets are cheap currency in the digital age. Presence is expensive. If she trusts you with her trauma but not with her Tuesday evening, you're not trusted, you're just distant enough to be safe. Sign 3. The pet name prison. Does she use couple language, babe, baby, love, my person, but bristle when you try to define a relationship or ask for consistency? These words are hormones in linguistic form. They trigger bonding chemicals in your brain. When she calls you babe at 2 a.m., Your brain registers her as your partner, even if your calendar shows you haven't seen her since the last lunar eclipse. She gets the emotional validation of having a boyfriend, and you get the illusion of having a girlfriend, but neither of you has the actual thing. It's a verbal contract with no physical enforcement. So here's the fix. It's called the meeting test, and it requires you to stop accepting the digital substitute. The next time she calls you babe, or opens up emotionally, or asks for 3 hours of your night, you say, I care about you, and I want to be here for you, but I need us to exist in the same room. Can we meet this week? Thursday at 7, I'll come to your neighborhood. Then you stop. You don't negotiate. You don't offer alternatives. You don't accept maybe or let me check my schedule. You create a binary choice, meet or admit this isn't real. I did this with Jessica. She said she was overwhelmed. She said she needed time. She said I was being pressuring by asking for 90 minutes of her week after she'd spent 20 hours on the phone with me that month. And that's when I knew. I wasn't her boyfriend. I was her emotional support animal. I was a convenient source of validation that she could turn on and off like a faucet, with no obligation to show up in the physical world where relationships actually exist. But here's the part that hurt the most. I let her do it. I accepted the pet names without the presence. I accepted the midnight intimacy without the daytime commitment. I was so starved for connection that I convinced myself a phone call was the same as a partnership. I confused being needed with being chosen. You deserve to be touched, not just texted. You deserve to occupy space in someone's life, not just bandwidth in their data plan. Drop digital in the comments if you've been someone's phone boyfriend, or real if you're holding out for physical presence. Stop being the voice she calls when she's lonely. Start being the man she clears her calendar for.